Hi there. So this year I thought I'd do a behind the scenes again. I have the weather's been pretty bad here. We had a lot of snow. We had what we call a Chinook wind come through. It goes from below freezing to 45 degrees overnight, and the wind starts blowing about 50 miles an hour, and it quickly melts the snow. So here's a look at the snowbank at the side of my driveway. These were 3 foot tall not that long ago, and there was snow everywhere. Well, it's cleared up really quick, so I thought I'd go through my display here for everybody. So here are my Home Depot snowmen that I rewired with C9 pixels in them. I took the C9 diffuser off and just popped one pixel in them. They look pretty nice. They connect right into my outline for my yard. You'll see I'm just having at the standard spacing. These are 6-inch spacing C9 pixels that I got from Holiday Coral, and then they just connect directly into those snowmen, and they're running off one of my differential receivers. Here's our donation pole, which I built out of 4-inch PVC pipe, a standard light globe, just a plastic one from Home Depot, and there's like 18 pixels in there. And then I have an old umbrella, shade umbrella base that I just mounted it to. And here's the rest of the outlines. I have 7 arches made from PEX pipe, 3/4 inch, interfacing with CPVC. It worked just perfectly in there. There are strips in those, and they work just fine. I like the looks of them. I have a snowflake under each of the arches, and these are Gilbert Engineering snowflakes. And the way I mount the snowflakes to the ground is I have this PVC frame I built. You can see there's 4 connection points with the PVC. I drive 2 pieces of rebar into the ground and slide it over the top. That keeps it from spinning in the wind and keeps it nice and solid. From a controller standpoint, I do power injection. I have 4 driven off of 1 output with power on the backside feeding there, and I have another 3 over here doing the same thing. The controller going in from this end, from the left side, and cut out. And I do, when I get to the 3rd one, I have little pigtails I've made that breaks the power and the power from the controller, the V+. That way I can ensure I don't get crosstalk with different power supplies. I have 2 Tune 2 signs, both 4 panels. This one's a P10. The other one I have is a P5. I just built a wooden box around it. If you go look at how I built my large P5 panel, it's the same method. There's a wooden box with a wooden trim on the inside of it that I mount the panels to. Run it off of on this one, it's an Octa scroller with a pocket beagle in it, which is more than enough capacity. And you can see my Ethernet coming in the bottom as well as the power. It runs in a standalone mode. Here is my Boscoil hat. This is a nice looking prop, I think. I have that staked into the ground. I built a PVC frame, zip tied it to the front, drilling some holes in the appropriate place. And down at the bottom, I have a couple pieces of PVC pipe, which again, I slide rebar. I drive rebar on the ground and I slide that over the top of it. And on the frame, just at the back of it, the frame, I just take, you can see it here, I think. I got some rebar that I just bent in my vise and pound it in the ground, and it keeps it in place. I get lots of wind. 50 miles an hour is not uncommon, and that keeps it in place. I have 4 Mato spiral trees. These are the ones he builds that are made out of steel. They're really, really solid, and the whole is in place in the wind. Again, I have a piece of rebar, a piece of conduit, which I painted green, and a piece of rebar I drive in the ground. I slide it over the top of the pole, and you see here I have 50-pound test line, fishing line, running into standard tent stakes that I pound in the ground. And this year I just did 3, and it held it in place no problem. I've done that with all 4 of them. Off the controller, I got 1 output driving 2 of them, and they just daisy chain one after the other. You will see my Gilbert Engineering cubes here. 2 of them side by side. I have a Culp controller, the K8, the Pocket Beagle version of it. And I use all 8 outputs for both cubes. 5 drive the big one, 3 drive the small one. And there's a lot of, you can see here on the controller, I have 3 different outputs for differential receivers, which this controller is capable of putting out. All right, you can look at my video on how I built these. I got a base underneath it with wheels that I just pull it around, and I've actually staked that to the ground as well to prevent it from moving from our high winds. Here's my train, custom built by myself. P5 panels for the windows. They are staked into the ground with a steel frame that I built, and I bolted to the side and I welded that together. And each of the panels have their own pocket scroller, pardon me, from Culp driving the panels. And I have these differential receivers right here behind it inside the ammo boxes, which drive the pixels and other props here in the yard. I have the Boscoil Decoro chroma canes. They're like 48 pixels each. I won't be taking these out today because of the snow on top of all the wires. Those are I had those controlled off of 2 outputs. And you'll also see here I have some standard props which I stake in the ground that I got like from Walmart or Costco. My snowman came from Costco. He's always on. I don't control him with X lights, but he's I've had to repair him. The metal base broke. I had to weld it back together. You'll see again, maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. I have fishing line. I have a whole bunch of them. Again, this 50-pound test line with standard tent stakes. Hold it in the ground and he stays solid. He doesn't blow away, doesn't fall over. And I'll put these pieces of yarn on here so I can see the fishing line so I don't trip over it. My mega tree right here, it's 18 strings, 200 pixels per string. You can look at my video on how I assemble my mega tree, but I have an output. One output drives 2 different strips. I go up to the top, I break the power, come down to the bottom, and then I run power injection on the bottom. So this mega tree runs off of 9 outputs, and actually it runs off of 10 because the 10th one drives my star at the top. This is an ASAP pole designed by Walter Monkhouse. A lot of people in the hobby use them. I am driving this with, I'll open up the box here for you, with a Falcon F16 I have 1 differential expansion port on there, receiver and that drives all the props in the yard. This controller drives everything in the yard with the exception of the cubes. Here's my large P5 panel with a new addition this year. I did do a video on how I built it, the way I mounted it. I'll come around the back side and show you here. Is I got a couple eyes up underneath my porch that I mounted in my house. That will stay there permanently. I bought a couple these chain hoist, hand operated, that hooks to another eye that I hook the hoist to, and I just crank it up. I have some wheels that when I take it down, I'll put it on and I'll haul it back into my shop. You'll see here I have some doors that I built on here so I could get to my controllers and the fuses if anything ever blew out on me. I'm running this off of a color light card, version 8, and I have the Raspberry Pi in there. And the bottom I have where the Ethernet comes in and the power. And to minimize the swing from the wind, because it hits straight on front of it, and it's swung pretty good this year, I just got some bungee cords, which I hooked and I attached it to my railing, and that basically minimized the amount of swing, but it needs to swing some to get rid of, or just so it doesn't swing around, to let the pressure come off from the wind hitting the front of it. All right, and so right here is where I have my master Raspberry Pi. I run on FPP. I also have my FM transmitter in here, and I have my show router. All right, so here's the inside of my box. I see my FM transmitter run into my antenna. I just got a little extension off of Amazon. My Raspberry Pi, which is actually a 3B plus. That is my master controller for the show. I have a show router, and I actually have an extension. I threw that on this year because I needed some more Ethernet ports, and I just grabbed it. I didn't have a chance to put it inside a box. I'll have to take care of that next year and actually put it inside. And so this here basically is the control center for the show. So up under the eaves there, you can see the control box. That's a Cope K40 Pocket Beagle version, and it is driving all the props of my house, and a bunch of different receivers come off of that. Obviously that's its design. You'll see there I have the Gilbert Engineering icicles mounted with PVC, and I had to build some metal brackets to hold it. I'll get a closer view of that here in a little bit for you. And I have multiple receivers driving it. There's my Olaf. You'll see a video I did on him and how I built it. There's a Boscoil singing face with a matrix on, or stocking with a matrix on it. I think you can see here from this shot that I have sandbags. I put those audio-visual type sandbags of like nylon bags, put sand in them, and those sit on top of a frame I built to hold it in place. And then I put an eye, which I just threaded into the side of my house and run rope up to the top of it to hold it in place here on the lower roof. I use the same type of approach on Santa and the reindeer. The difference would be is that I run another set of sandbags over the peak to hold and keep them from sliding off of the roof. And again, that took a lot of wind. You'll also see here I got C9s around my windows attached with half-inch PVC pipe. A big addition this year was all the snowflakes on the peak of my garage. The big ones there are the Gilbert Engineering XL 450s, and then there's the 48s, and I think those are Ds down the lower ones. They're underneath my mother of all wreaths. Looks really good. I really enjoy those. I think that added a lot to the show. And also some more of the icicles from Gilbert Engineering. I've got a lot of props from them. I have this CG 1500 with 2 receivers in there, driving a lot of the stuff on this side of the house. Here's another receiver box, which drives a lot of the props on the garage as well as the icicles here on the... All right, so here are my snowflakes on my smaller garage door, stuck on with magnets. And what I've done is I've just got enough wire, and I've got it zip tied right there to the sill, and then run it up to my controller so it'll fit up underneath. Just rises up with my garage door. One thing I'll show you I had to do on this door versus the other one is on this one I had to twist the wires to keep the profile low, and I took some magnets and some pieces of wood, those rare earth magnets, and just stick it right to the door. As it rises up, it goes in underneath, and I just have 3 snowflakes on it. These are the small snowflakes from Gilbert Engineering with roughly 50 pixels each. One of them has 48. Here are the snowflakes on my larger garage door. I have 6 of them on there that are Gilbert Engineering ones again with roughly 50 pixels each. I have rare earth magnets. These ones I built with using those standoffs, put some epoxy in them, and with the magnets, and then I screwed that into embedded the screws into the epoxy, and they just stick to the garage door. When this door rises, there's a little more room, so I did not have to twist the wires; they're just pushed in normal. And over here with the wiring, all I did was a simple connection to the snowflake. Ran it up again to a place where this is so stick-on zip ties. I actually got a screw to hold it in place. and zip in place, and then that runs up and over to my controller. So here's a close-up of the C9s around one of my windows, and I'm using the Holiday Coral plastic clips. I have to replace these periodically. They get brittle when they're in the sun because I leave them up all year round, and I'll say I'll probably replace about, I don't know, 20% of them every year. They'll snap as I reinstall the PVC pipe, and as I'm doing, I just replace them. I just make sure I have stock on hand as I'm setting up my show. So here's a close-up view from the back of a couple of props sitting on my lower roof. Again, you'll see the sandbags, and then you'll see the nylon cord, and I clip that into an eye on the side of the house. Keeps everything nice and solid. So here's my Culp controller, the F40 Pocket Beagle version. If you see, I put all the differential receiver outputs on the outside. It actually has one on the inside of it as well. And we'll get this opened up a little bit, and you'll see how I got this all wired up. And this drives everything on the house. It's worked out pretty well. There's another differential receiver running in a Harbor Freight ammo box. So up here on the lower roof, you'll see I have a baby of all wreaths, and then a Decurl spinner, and a Gilbert Engineering snowflake. I think that's a J flake. I got several different styles. I'll get mixed up with them, all driven by this Culp K40. And then over here you'll see an outline around my window. This might be a better view. I took some PVC pipe and a heat gun, and I bent it to line up with this window. And I am using, again, the plastic clips from Holiday Coral, and I just leave them up year round again. And they do break, but I just replace them, about 20% fail. All right, getting ready to tear down my icicles on my peak and my wireframe here on my roof. You'll see here how I mounted it to the roof. Let's look at the reindeer, the closest one here. I got a sandbag at the base of the bracket that holds it in place, and one at the top. I have some holes drilled in the top of the frame there that the reindeer is zip tied to. I run rope up to the peak, and there's a sandbag just like those at the base that's up over the peak. Each one of these reindeer here are attached to it with zip ties, and I custom built these frames using steel with my welding machine. You could build this out of wood if you wanted to. I did a coral prop out of PVC using the same type method. I'm taking down my icicles here on the peaks of my roof on one of these lifts. You will see the brackets I have in place here. I just cut a piece of angle iron. I have a bolt that goes into the soffit on my house. On the back side of that's a T-nut, and then it's bolted to a piece of EMT pipe. This one in particular because it's unsupported on the very end, that way it doesn't flop around the wind. I have holes to the EMT pipe. I'll get on this one here away from the shadows, where I've zip tied it around the EMT pipe, each 90 degrees apart. See, there's one there, it holes through it, and this one wraps around it, and it keeps it solid during the entire year through strong windstorms. All right. Well, that pretty much does it for this year's show. My behind the scenes, so I hope that helps somebody out. You guys have a wonderful day.